Hello, ladies and gentle fiends. As you watch Brent, the 1 or 2 billion rand business coach, suck
Two
on his
billion
coffee.
rand.
God. you
It's
know,
vanilla chai. It's vanilla chai. I have class.
is it? Okay, well, that
Yeah.
says it all really about the man you're about to be mentored by and coached by for this version of the Getting Down with Brown sort of format of the show. This is episode 261. Welcome, everybody, to a live broadcast. We all are broadcasting this all over the internet. So wherever you are, if you want to interact with us, do so. We have a studio line as well. Maverick, please post that up. While we're getting some final formalities here in the back end sorted, Brent, do you want to just give our audience the headline? Who are you? What are you about? For those of us who potentially been living in a tree and don't know who you are.
So I think that I'm often kind of a slut, right? Depends what you pay me for. Depends what I'll do for you. I think that's
TMI,
to
bro.
some degree.
TMI.
No, not that broad. Not that broad. I'm very missionary. Hey, no, I'm a 100% business coach. I work in the media, advertising, comms, and tech sector. Predominantly Joburg, Cape Town, and a sprinkling of clients all over the world that have probably left the country predominantly, right? So guys that have pissed off to the States, Europe, Asia, Australia, and help the guys understand, I say the guys, owner-run business only, deal with the senior managers, decision makers, stakeholders, shareholders, that sort of stuff. Figure out where their business is and where it needs to go to and how to get there. And I teach them how to run their business. I don't get involved in the product or service in great detail because I'm not a designer, I'm not a coder, I'm not any of those things, but I understand the other 80% of their business, how to run their business effectively and build it.
Okay,
so
cool.
That's the day job, and then a bunch of spin-offs on the side, which if you ask probing questions, we can get to.
Okay, I hopefully would like to probe with some questions. Okay, cool. So we've done a bit of innovation. That's what we like to do here on the Matt Brown Show. So we're going to take you through a bit of a journey today. There's a number of segments that we've introduced today just to kind of make this show as useful and as much of a utility as possible for all of you around the world listening and watching us right now. So we're going to start off with our business news segment. Cool. So business news. I've got to share this article. I shared it with Brent earlier today. Let me just bring it up on screen for everybody so you can see what's going on here. So this is quite big news, Brent. Facebook, Twitter, tumble on Unilever's social media pullback. So there's a whole bunch of big brands. Unilever is just one of these brands that have basically now pulled their advertising from Facebook. Essentially because they are saying that, Facebook's advertising policies are, shall we say, less than, let's just say they're very effective, but certainly when you're spreading, quote, misinformation, et cetera, this is really corporate America and should I say corporate global's sort of stab at saying we won't stand for platforms who do not value people and society. Brent, what's going on here? What do you foresee as being some of the major consequences for this kind of news?
So I think that there's a few pieces I want to talk about here. The first thing is they weren't the first. It was the Patagonia North Face war that I think started this whole sort of chain of events. North Face pulled this advertising. A couple of days later, Patagonia pulled this advertising. And subsequently, a lot of other big brands like Unilever putting advertising, predominantly, obviously, Facebook and Instagram. And I think that it's partly on the back of everyone panicking around, weirdly enough, sort of the Black Lives Matter movement. Right? Everyone's like trying to be very PC about everything. So the guys are jumping on the bandwagon in terms of going, we're making a political stand here, because I think the underlying conversation here is Trump, the Russians, and our friend, the oligarch, Mark Zuckerberg, who, by some accounts, is the most dangerous man on the planet. And this is a guy with more power than anyone else, that is a platform causing potentially, depends, there's good and bad, but the bad side is probably more dangerous than the cigarette industry, and yet he goes unfettered. He can do what he wants, and he gets away with it, and he gets his punitive fines, and off he goes. So I think that the underlying piece here is that Facebook in particular have been very bad at keeping democracy alive. I think more is probably one way of looking at it. And not the fact that there isn't good stuff there. The bottom line is, if you type into Facebook or Google, how to change a country, you don't get a link to a voter registration form. You get a link to building a bomb, and it's all the wrong information. So who's responsible for that? And ultimately, they want to try and be objective, as a platform, but there's a lot of damage going on there. So I think that probably rightly so. I think it's a bit of an overreaction. I think the guys will come back slowly, and a couple of yes or no sirs from Zuckerberg and the big brands will come back. I think especially now that the world is going to the e-commerce play, if they cannot drive traffic to their platforms, and Facebook being one of the biggest, I think that the bottom line is going to speak.
But what are the alternatives though? I mean, let's be honest here. This sounds to me like a BS protest to go, we want to build again. This is what irritates me about the behavior of some big corporates. I'm not saying all of them, but and also this again applies to the big agency space. So it's like, you have brands capitalizing on cultural events, and sometimes they're doing it in a way that doesn't, let's just say, it comes across as being a little bit, I kind of see what you're saying, but the fact that you're donating $100,000 worth of, or 100,000 skin products to nurses, you're still capitalizing off the sacrifice of healthcare workers. So what the hell are you doing?
So I think that the only guys that have done it right in the last few weeks, I'll go back to Black Lives, but I think that you see brands physically donating money. And like Lego wasn't the biggest by any means, but they were the first. Lego put $4 million towards one of the Black Lives Matter charities. And that's not just words, right? That's actual money. That's shareholder value. And yes, it might not be it's not going to really move the ship in terms of their bottom line, but it's a meaningful amount. And I think the sort of the verbal hacktivism of people going on Twitter and just bitching and moaning, whether it's individuals or brands, unless they're actually doing something about it. So by Unilever withdrawing money, they're probably not going to see an immediate drop off in their revenue. If anything, they're saving money, which is actually really good for their business, right? As opposed to doing anything. They should be saying, cool, instead of spending the hundreds of millions of dollars on Facebook, let's give that to the right charity. Let's give it to the Democratic Party. Let's make a stand and actually write the check that the amount can cash. So I think that there's a lot of these things which people are saying, and there's no real sort of gravitas and movement behind it. I question a lot of these things.
Okay, Brent, I sent you the live stream link. You can punt that.
Cool.
But what are the alternatives though? I mean, it's all very well to say, okay, we spend $8 billion a year on advertising. That doesn't mean advertising on Facebook necessarily, especially when you're thinking about multiple regions. A brand like Unilever with a portfolio of brands, a portfolio of initiatives. Many of that stuff is in sustainable kind of initiatives, I guess. Domestos being one of those. What are the alternatives though? I mean, you pull the kind of, listen, let's think about this more broadly. You've got GDPR in the UK, right? So now you've got ad exchanges that you fundamentally haven't been able to use. So the handbrake's been pulled up on what you could do with your data. Then you make a stand at the CMO level global for Unilever and go, this sounds like a great idea, Ogilvy. Thank you for the recommendation. Let's pull our advertising off Facebook, and now you've got $1 billion a year that you've now saved. What are you going to spend it on that's going to get you an equivalent return?
So this is why they're going to go back, because I can't see any real meaningful online platform, right? There's the four, right? I mean, it's Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple. And unless you're on, depending which business you're in, I mean, I think if you're not on those four, you haven't got a business. So you can go back to the old school. You can go back to TV, print, and radio. But I mean, it's not going to make a difference. And so I think that Zuckerberg's got way too much power here. So I think that they're going to go back to him, and because there's no meaningful, massive thing that you can do that's going to replicate what he's built. Not in the short term, right? I do think what's going to happen is that the Department of Justice or the Fed in the States is going to break up some of these big fours. So they're probably going to end up breaking up eventually Facebook into WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, whatever else these guys own, a whole bunch of stuff, which initially sounds horrific. But if you actually look at the what happens traditionally with any business, you break up a business, and the sum of the pieces is actually worth more than the initial one. So actually better for shareholders, but then they actually run off on their own and they compete a bit, which is probably healthier for the market.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Facebook is like ridiculously efficient. And in our next a couple segments from now, we're going to go into how to X, and I want to talk about addressable markets and how I figured that out. But certainly it's like for us, Facebook in the small business space, generating leads or pipeline for technology companies, you just can't touch it. You can't touch it, man. I mean, like even off our own base, our own database, right, of about 40,000 companies. We did right now we're doing a massive campaign for Microsoft, and our cost per lead is the same on Facebook and off our database, right? So in other words, we own the data versus data we're trying to activate and then acquire more data for enrichment. So it's the same. So like we can't beat them.
No, you can't beat them. Like, these guys built the game, right? These guys know what they're doing. So I mean, in terms of search, it's search for general Google, search for lead gen and for punting content's got to be Facebook and Instagram. And then search for shopping is Amazon, and that's all there is. I mean, so other than that, everything else is a joke. I mean, all the other players are fractional amounts, compared to. And so I think that so you don't have an option.
Yeah, I agree. And also, if you think about the old, kind of advertising, because that's what we're talking about now. It's the old model was reach and frequency. How many people can I reach and how frequently can I reach them? And again, if you're talking about consumer markets, you cannot beat Facebook. Where are you going to beat that?
No.
So
and not in this country. I mean, in this country, there's no one else. I think when Amazon lands, I think there's going to be a slightly different landscape. But I think they're going to be a while to get here. We're not that attractive from a dollar perspective. We're quite a small economy compared to anything else. So I think there'll be a while. But I do think the next sort of big wave in South Africa in terms of the next big player. And the guys should start understanding how to use the platform, produce content for the platform, and push traffic from other channels to the platform.
Great, guys. Please keep those comments and questions coming in. If you'd like to engage with myself or Brent, you can just comment or tweet or whatever you'd like to do, or pop onto the studio line, and we'll take some of your questions in a short while. Let's get into our second segment here, which is called Simply Sales. So Simply Sales, this is all about sales, Brent. So now I always say, like, listen,
isn't everything all about sales?
That's all there is. That's all there is. I mean, yeah, we're having like literally our best month ever, but it's like literally 10 days ago, it was like I was SHITing myself. Can't swear on the show anymore, Brent. Facebook doesn't like that,
Really?
Yeah, no. But anyway, on a serious note, it was because we took our foot off the gas. We thought we were okay. It was okay just to like take a little bit of a break, sort of thing. The effort wasn't there, the focus wasn't there, and we like turned it on. We pulled it out of the fire, and thankfully, we did that. I think a lot of companies now, Brent, and obviously you coach, do business coaching all the time, Mr. 2 billion rand business coach. I mean, what do you see across your client portfolio? Like, are there any interesting strategies, secret weapons that you see across your client base that they're using to drive sales?
So, I mean, let's talk about the current situation, which is obviously the deep, dark COVID explosion of cases in South Africa situation. It all comes down to, firstly, who went into this last 3 months with money. Anyone that went in with money has obviously been healthier than the guys that were sitting on the edge or poorly geared, okay, or heavily geared. So money's been a big driver for the guys to do other stuff. So there's been a fair amount of acquisition or merger. So guys with money can see some good deals out there where guys have good businesses but don't have the cash flow to sustain their business. So they end up acquiring businesses fairly cheaply. So, I mean, that's one way of growing a business, which I've seen in the industry. Fairly small guys actually acquiring slightly bigger guys because the smaller guys are sitting with more cash.
Really?
So, it's happening a little bit here. And I'm seeing a few of those deals floating around. And interestingly, like, everyone talks about COVID being the accelerant. And it's amazing to me that some of these conversations have been floating around for 6, 12 months, and guys are closing deals 6 weeks because now that they have to. And it's incredible to me how that's like, we'll dance, but now we're getting married straight away. So there's that piece. But I also think that the guys who understood, and again, every business is different, right, depending what the product or service is, but the guys that understood the most effective way to sell. So if they understood it was direct, all the cold calling, old fashioned, or whether it was just turning on AdWords or getting themselves product and doing the whole funnel, here's the download, here's the 15 email chain and the videos and the value add, and then we'll convert you, whatever that was. Those are the guys that seem to have survived fairly well through this last couple of months. Some of the guys are thriving. But I think what's incredible to me is that there's a lot of businesses out there that hate the word pivot. Everyone's pivoting their product. Right? It's excuse my language, you can't swear on the Matt Brown show anymore. But some businesses can't pivot. But what they can do is they can just get way smarter with using the tools that are out there, the cheap to free tools out there. So guys that were traditionally video production businesses that just relied on the agency for business, and the agencies have died off, suddenly these guys are gone, actually, we have to understand digital. And in a very short period of time, just by watching a bunch of videos on YouTube, buying a couple of, ConvertKit, ReplyOs, whatever these things are the guys are using, they've suddenly been able to turn their business into far more of a sales machine than they've ever been. And it's amazing once they do it and they go, oh, this thing actually works. They then go back and go, why did we never do this before? It's like, how come we never tried this? And also, they're not going back to the agencies necessarily in a rush because they realize that agencies weren't actually giving them the value they hoped. But now they have a deeper understanding of the product, of the platforms.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that at all, to be honest. I mean, I think the one thing that I'll say is that no one medium is going to do it for you. I think, it's like you get people who focus on email only, and it's like, okay, it's not going to do it. Or digital marketing, like advertising on Facebook, not going to do it. It's like
social,
totally. You have to look
everything.
You have to look at it holistically. But I will say this: the number one generator in our business is the phone. That's what we use.
So Matt, I mean, I'm doing a course now at the moment to just hold to one of the green banks, and there's a whole 2-hour section on basically lead generation for dummies. I mean, for very simply, I'm not going into any fancy tools or anything like that, but it's like, guys, trust the cold calling method. If you know what you're doing and you have the balls and the passion to keep picking up the phone, it still works. And yes, it's a numbers game, but it still works. I want to go back to your previous question. What are the things that guys have realized? For me, the thing which has been eye-opening for myself, as well as a lot of my clients, is that I think a lot of them had a lot of extra time all of a sudden on their hands. So it's once they'd settled down to the remote from work, work from home sort of scenarios, and they figured out the tech, they weren't doing the hour into work and back. They weren't traveling for meetings. They suddenly found they had time. They could have lost a few clients. They had time. What do they do with the time? They produced content, long format, video, audio, whatever it was. And all of a sudden, that content is being passed around, whether it's on WhatsApp or WhatsApp groups, or whether it's on, on the social medias. But they're also going, oh, content actually does work. And content actually helps improve that initial sales process, especially the beginning part where it's almost the FAQ period. You can just dump all information into video or long format and you get over that hump quite quickly. So I think that the combination is important, but I think at the middle of this, some power content I think is crucial.
But also I think carefully placed content. So I want to share my screen again. Brent, I'll ping you the link on WhatsApp so you can take a look at kind of what we do in our business to help drive the sales process, especially when you are diversifying into new products. So you said pivot. So innovation being one of those kind of key linchpin words, I suppose, in that space. So let me just show you the release that we put out. In the last week, we put out about 6 of these in targeted media. So this one up on your screen, guys, you'll see is Digital Kung Fu launches a powerful platform that tracks B2B buying trends. This was one of 2. But this was essentially how we start to let the market know that we're innovating, that we've got something new for them to consider as part of their buying decision-making process. And this was really all around the launch of TechSumo, and it kind of goes into what it is, why it's necessary right now, especially in in the technology sector in a COVID post-lockdown environment. And then we've got a video here within the article itself, and this is placed on Biz Community. We place a lot of stuff on Tech Central, IT Web, wherever our IT decision makers typically go and play. And we find that this works beautifully because anytime somebody searches digital kung fu, as an example, let me just plug this in here so you guys can see what I mean about this. So when you put out press releases on high value media, it comes up in the news section on Google's search listings in many instances. So I've Googled my name, our company name, Digital Kung Fu, and you can start to see it starts to do organic search results because you're linking to, or you're placing your name, your brand name on search engine results pages where the quality score of that website, that source website for your content is very high. And so now here's another one. Digital Kung Fu delivers 236 million rand in sales ready pipelines in 12 months for clients. So this one is just sitting there, and this was released 7 months ago. So now anytime somebody searches for Digital Kung Fu, our brand story is there. This content has been carefully crafted and placed in high value targeted media because it will speak for us in rooms that we're not in. We landed a major telco through one of these kinds of releases. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It just costs a little bit of careful consideration around, sorry about the sound, careful consideration around the story and the placement. And we find that stuff works at a content level very, very well. What I find people do too much of is just like, let's put a whole bunch of content out that isn't carefully crafted or packaged, right? It's like the Gary Vaynerchuk model. So let's create a podcast, recycle that thing to death. And it's like a bazillion content pieces a year. Like, okay.
So I see he has backed off a bit, right? But that's just a quick thing. So I think that public relations and, for lack of a better term, used to be boobs and balloons, right? That was the term people used to call the PR ladies, boobs and balloons. And PR became irrelevant a couple of years ago. It became this thing where it was like, oh, press release, no one gives a shit. Oh, sorry, Zuckerberg. But over time, I think what's happened in the last probably 2 or 3 years is that PR has become more and more prevalently important in terms of the way in which we approach the market online. And I think that the thing we forget is that PR is predominantly made up of journos who actually know how to tell the story and how to piece it together in a way that actually has impact. And I think that if you apply digital marketing with a PR lens, it's a far more powerful way of being exposed online. So I do think that the public relations piece is crucial about where you place it and what the story and making sure that narrative is consistent across all the platforms. So don't underestimate the power of PR. And the reality for me is that PR is actually relatively still incredibly cheap. So I mean, if you go to a digital agency and they go, we're going to spend money on media across 5-6 platforms and we're going to produce content for you, and you're in for proper money. With PR, 1 or 2 good pieces a month, well placed, consistently, and that's what sales is about, consistency, is probably for smaller businesses the place you want to spend the most amount of money. Like I would go spend, as a small business, I would spend 10 grand a month on PR far sooner than I would on Google AdWords, Facebook, or a copywriter, for argument's sake, just to produce for blog posts. I think for the right business, again, you should try to do everything, obviously, but within budget. But for smaller businesses, the guys that have serious cash, I think that PR is going to, long-term, digital PR is going to give you the most amount of impact.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. I think AdWords is, while highly effective, it lends itself again to big budgets. Because, I mean, yes, you can try and hack the long tail and try and pick up volume for traffic from, those lesser searched keyword terms. But if someone's saying buy shoes, you want to advertise and buy shoes, compete. Not buy sandals. They're not the same thing, same category, but I'm only interested in shoes. So, it's you have to have the budgets to compete. I mean, even in the technology lead generation space, like we found, like we don't even spend a cent on AdWords. But we spend so much money on other media owned by companies like Facebook and LinkedIn. The South African we broke South African exchange control laws around movement of money overseas. So, but not a cent of that was spent on AdWords. Why? Because it's too expensive. Like you're paying, like we had a client send us a mail just last week. It's like 6,800 Rand for a lead on AdWords. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Who pays that? Imagine like how many phone calls you could make. You could pay someone
Yeah.
$6,000 a
Full
month,
time.
full time,
Yeah.
and to get the same results. So why would you bother? So
I think it's got its place. I think for the right kind of business, I think it's got its place. And I think that if you are a plumber in Sandton and you can own Plumber Sandton, probably less competitive and probably worthwhile. But then it's a very simple campaign. If you're a big, heavy business with a very long sales cycle and a complicated product, AdWords is not the place.
No, you got to stay away from that stuff. So I want to get into our next segment here, which is how to X. So how to X is basically where we're going to show you how to do stuff. So Brent, have you heard about the idea of addressable market before?
I've heard the term. I haven't done any research on that as such, no.
Okay. So the addressable market, as we define it, is the number of people who can search for and find your product, right? And so one of the things I wanted to get your view on, Brent, and it's again, actually, by the way, we've had a lot of voice notes come through on the studio line, all about people trying to pivot. It's like, well, how do I pivot from here to there? And so for me, trying to sell a new product to an existing customer is much easier than trying to sell a new product to a new customer. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of get onto the screen here is Facebook Ads Manager. For those of you who are thinking about introducing a new product, which I know a lot of you are. Brent, you also are, you said you have a lot of products on the side. So maybe, Brent, could you maybe just actually give the guys some context about what you're doing specifically in the innovation kind of space?
So there's two pieces. The first thing is that I've got two main products at the moment that are running. One has been paused because it's actually a COVID problem. I can't do groups, which is an issue. But the one that's picked up a huge amount of traction is that I wrote a book 3.5 years ago called What the Freelance. It was a mini MBA for small businesses. And I'm now joking about the fact that I wrote the wrong book, because I wrote the book trying to help freelancers. It was turned into a course, and no freelancers did the course. Only people in corporate wanting to leave corporates and go out on their own did the course or bought the book, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had the wrong angles, the right content, but the wrong framing. Okay. Anyway, about 1.5 years ago, I had one of the large minds reach out and go, "Hi, can you do a CV writing course? We're retrenching 40 middle-aged white guys." And I was like, "Middle-aged white guys from Mines, CV, you haven't got a chance. You're not going to get a job." So I said, "No." I said, "But I'll offer them the freelance course." And they bought. And I tweaked and tailored enough to talk about the change of mindset and understanding that. And I built a one-day masterclass. It was an 8-hour facilitated class on how to start a freelance business and exit your current 30-year tenure in a job. And not knowing that there was this wonderful thing, wonderful for me, COVID, coming down the pipeline. And if you look at the numbers of retrenchments and retrenchees in the SA market at the moment, the numbers are staggering. So we've productized it that we're launching the full, it's a 5-hour online course, downloadable resources, beautifully put together on the back end of a WordPress site, as well as the facilitated remote. It's a 4x2 hour course. So we're doing 4 sessions of 2 hours each, because 8 hours in front of a screen is a bit hectic. And that's pumping. So we're now going into the next iteration, not a pivot. It's obviously we want to take this global. So I'm removing the SARS and the local VAT and some of the non-local pieces, so I can make it a global product, number one. And number two, we're also tailoring it for retirees, because I think that down the line, retrenchments will always be a thing somewhere in the world, but I think retirement will always be a thing forever. So we're now trying to put together an online course which speaks to, if you're about to be retrenched or retiring, how do you start the side hustle freelance gig to become your primary income source? And that's a different product from what I do, right? It's very different. So the content came out of my life and my coaching business, but now it's for the first time in a long time, I've got a fully functioning standalone product that hopefully the dream, right? Hopefully while I'm sleeping, guys, it will make money. So that's the one side thing. So again, I've basically taken, and I'm a big believer in double niching. It goes
double
back to,
niching.
I want to. So when you bring out a product, You don't want to be a Me Too business. You're a podcast studio. Oh, me too. Like, no, we're a podcast studio that specializes in entrepreneurship, or we're a podcast studio that specializes in producing vegan food. Like, give me what the double niche is. Like, so vegan foods for kosher people, or vegan food for like whatever. Like make it go super narrow, right? Great for AdWords because you know exactly who you're targeting. So the other thing which I started was basically a business entrepreneur group for motorcyclists, and we've been doing that for a year and a half. So we'd meet once every 6 weeks, early in the morning, cup of coffee, get on your bike, out to the country, breakfast, group coaching session. Double niche: entrepreneur, businessman,
Wow.
woman who own motorcycles, right? And why that's important is that it gives you so much. It's so much easier to target those people, because I'm going, okay, finding people who own motorbikes on Instagram, so easy. Why? They post pictures of their motorbikes. So immediately you know that they're not only business owners, they're bikers. Plus, you can go to all the major dealerships and you can partner or do channel partnerships. You can go to all the major clothing brands around motorcycling. You can hop onto the back of all the other motorcycle groups and communities. So it's easy to determine that targets in terms of these, what did you call it? The serviceable market, or what was the term you used?
Addressable market.
Addressable market.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that you take what you got. Like, I didn't start a separate business. I didn't start a coffee shop, right? That's a complete pivot. This is just, it's an iteration of product that's allowing me to find a new niche and use the content and use my expertise in a different way. So I don't know whether that's a true definition of a pivot or not. I don't think it actually is.
No, it's not. But just I'll say thanks for the comments, guys. I'm going to get up this how to X thing. I'm going to demystify that. Keith, I'm going to get your question in the live Q&A segment. Adam says you're a smart man, and if you need help with LinkedIn, you must let him know. Who else is on here? Okay, I'll come back to you guys in a second. So up on my screen here, guys, I want to just paint the context, and then Brent, feel free to jump in here. I know you can't see my screen, but we're constrained. But this stuff's like, it's the idea that I want to get across. So I'm on Facebook's ad manager. So let's take Brent's example, right? So he wants to get in touch with motorcycle enthusiasts. So how would you know that for Brent's double niched product, how many companies or how many decision makers could you possibly reach? So this is a kind of a process that I would recommend that you use if you are looking to take a new product to market, but you don't know how many businesses or potential decision makers, in other words, the addressable market, what is the actual value of the addressable market that you're trying to reach? So on Facebook, it's wonderful because they give you so many great stats, and also the same process applies to LinkedIn. And what we're trying to do is essentially specify an audience, right? So here, I'll just say edit. I've got South Africa as my target audience. And then, I don't know how many businesses. Hang on, who's making noise there? Is that you, Brent?
No, it's me. Sorry, man.
Okay, you're listening to the stream. That's fine.
I'm trying to watch what you're doing on Facebook.
Oh, are you? Okay, that's fine. Just mute yourself then. That's fine. You go ahead.
I have.
Oh, you have. Okay. So then, anyway, so what you're able to do is then specify some interests. So let's try and find some interests here. So lookalike audiences. Edit audiences. Okay, this isn't allowing me to do it. Okay, here you go. Edit anyway. So here you go. So now I can specify age. I can say, don't show me minions of 18. So for Brent's market, I would, what do you reckon, Brent? 35, 30 maybe?
So no. So I'm generally, if I look at my actuals, I'm probably 30 to 50.
Really? Eh? Okay, so let's say 30 to 50.
Predominantly male.
Okay, let's go with men, South Africa. What are their interests, Brent?
So they're definitely interested in a whole bunch of the motorcycle pages, right? Just they follow like BMW Motorrad or Suzuki or Honda or Harley or any of the motorcycling.
So I'm typing in Harley Davidson Sportster. I own one. Lovely bike. Highly recommend it. We need to go riding again, by the way.
We do.
Let's say Suzuki. Is that a good one?
Yeah, Suzuki, Harley, Ducati.
Oh, yeah. So I'm
adding
BMW
in Motorrad.
Okay, great. So I'm adding in all these brands. Interesting. Ducati's not. Oh, here it is. I spelled it wrong. Interest Ducati, BMW, Motorrad, right? And then of course you got all the different products as well, right? You've got like the different brands as well. Yeah. But just for the purposes of illustration here, at the moment, Brent, for our product, we've got, or your product, I should say, 860,000 people. And this is just the beginning, right? And again, I could hyper target. I could say, don't show me the whole of South Africa. Just actually show me, I mean, because Brent lives in Johannesburg,
Gauteng.
right? Gauteng, yeah. So let's actually have a look here. Gauteng. While this loads, Gauteng. Cool. Let's see what this does. What's our audience now? 330,000. Now, you tell me that you can't build a business on 330,000 motorcycle enthusiasts, but you also said that the guys need to be entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah. So do they follow you? Do they follow Gary Vaynerchuk? Do they follow
there you go.
Entrepreneur Man? Like, so you know, where do they consume their content on Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can pick the 10 biggest Inc. Forbes, you know, like the obvious ones.
Yeah.
There's a good chance you'll whittle that down, probably down to 30 to 50,000 people.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can build a business. I could build that business on 500 people.
Totally.
Like, easy.
Totally.
So it's
totally.
definitely an addressable market for sure.
So now, to your point earlier, Brent, about content, your content would, now you know that the addressable market is 540,000 as an example, or let's just say 50,000. If you know then that your product price is 5,000 Rand, you take 50,000 multiplied by 5,000 Rand to give you 25 million, right? Or 2.5 million.
Yep.
So you know then that that is your potential economic pool, right? That you could tap up. And if you know that you are selling, there's nobody else offering, what is it? What is it called? Coffee and what is it called? Your actual
business bikes and breakfast.
Business bikes and breakfast. So I don't know anybody else selling that stuff. So because you're the only one that's putting your hand up, it's like the Stopforth law. He puts his hand up first will be accredited with the solution, right? So you're the guy that's going to dominate that, and then you would know what is 50. Is my maths right? 50,000.
25.
Is it 20? I was right. 25 bar.
Yep.
Jeez, I was right. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So 25 million Rand is your available opportunity, and then it's just
that's only one revenue model there, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to get sponsorship and I want to get a brand to throw some cash at this, and hotel chain or restaurant chain. So there's other ways I can make money off the back of it.
Totally. You haven't even diversified yet, right? So you're playing it small right now. And so and then there's sponsorships, as you said. So actually it's a much bigger, it's probably like a 50 million Rand opportunity, right? And you're the guy there that's gonna hold this up as an opportunity for you to go after, right? Your North Star. So that is what I wanted to paint a picture for you guys on. It's just a simple tool that anybody can use right now to understand, well, if I'm going to innovate, should I innovate? Because there might be a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap? And can you commercialize it? And can you reach people? Like especially now with Unilever pulling their ads off the platform, you're going to probably find that cost per contacts will actually come down in many segments. So I would highly recommend that you guys have a stab at that. Brent, any comments?
Well, two things, especially, I mean, if you're a small producer that's fundamentally fighting Unilever in green soaps or whitewashing definitely get on Facebook now, because it's going to be way cheaper to compete. Another thing as well, just in terms of addressable market, is that I said things like, you don't want to be a Me Too business, talking about differentiators and having your USP. Sometimes being a Me Too business is actually the right business, okay? Like you look at, let's become an accounting practice. There's nothing wrong with becoming an accounting practice. So what is the USP? Are you cheaper, faster, better? What is it? Like, what do you do? But fundamentally, there's a very clear need. It's never going away. We always need an accountant until, technology takes over. But the point being is, you don't have to try to find a gap that no one else is doing. Like my business bikes and breakfast is a very, very unique kind of product offering in terms of the kind of client. But the fact is that there are thousands and thousands of businesses that need accounting. So if that's your stick, don't be shy to be smart with your content, target very specifically. But it's okay just to be a generic accountant. There's a business there.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So we're going to get into our exciting new live mentorship segment. Here we go. So we're going to get old Deborah Hartung on the line. Let's give her a shot. Ring, ring, ring. Deborah is on another call. Are you serious right now? Are you serious right now? Deborah, I know you're on the stream. I saw you earlier there. Here we go. Let's see if she answers this time. Deborah, can you hear us? Deborah. Hang on, let me get her on speaker. Debs, hold on one sec. Deb, I can't hear you. Oh, there you go. Were you on mute? Was it the mute fairy? Just hold on. Speak now. No, nothing. Okay, let me get you on speaker then.
No, nothing.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Cool. Actually, you know what it was? I had the volume down. My bad. Technique. See, it's so much going on here. Try now. Debs.
Hello?
There you go. Look at
I'm
that.
here.
Technology when it works. Oh my gosh.
Magical.
I know. People are like, is he going to blow this one? Matt Brown. Trends on Twitter.
It's never the tech, it's the technician.
I know, right? If any that were true. Oh my God. Seriously. WhatsApp. It's obviously not me. I'm going on to 4G. We all experience this every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've become used to it. I've become used to it. So.
Oh, God. Deborah. I'm going to try phone her again. Sorry, guys. This is part of the show.
That was not your fault. WhatsApp dropped the call.
Yes, I know. This is what we said. It's always, let's blame everything else and everyone else.
Deborah, we were bitching about Mark Zuckerberg earlier. Let's blame him.
No, but you were. And I heard you guys talking about Unilever and Coca-Cola pulling their ads. Big Brother's always listening, man. Mm-hmm. You know?
Well, I'm sticking with you, Facebook. Just give us extra cool stuff. Right. So Deborah, this is our mentorship session. So Debs, do you want to just tell Brent a little bit more about what you do? I think that what I'd like to kind of get Brent's view on, and then I'll weigh in where I can, is just about how do we now scale Deborah's offer into more companies. So do you want to just give us the headline?
Okay, so I mean, this is number one. This is always really difficult for entrepreneurs, as you know, is coming up with that elevator pitch. You know, what do you do? Because there's a lot that I do. But one of the main things that I do really is that I help specifically SMEs to really create an amazing workplace culture and really improve teamwork and collaboration and performance within the organization. So that's one of the main things that I do, and I do that through some coaching, some training, some really cool tech deployment. Yeah, I think that's probably the headline.
Is it mostly facilitation? Is it mostly you selling your hours?
Yes. And it's, you know, it's interesting because you're always talking about pivoting. And I mean, I've been following your work for a long time. And I actually, 3 years ago, I actually registered a separate business to start productizing some of my services. And despite some really good PR and things, which I think is one of the ways that Matt found me originally, despite that, the business didn't really take off to the extent that I would have thought that it should. And I don't know if that was partly because of the type of products and services that I'm selling, that people maybe aren't really ready yet to buy those online. But now with COVID-19, Billy, as you were saying earlier, it's presenting an opportunity for us to take those things online and sell it as exactly like you're saying. You know, instead of a one full day that I would come to your office, we do it now as 4 by 2 hour sessions, you know, and you download all the stuff that you were going to do in there. Yeah.
So, Deborah, what would you say is the number one challenge for you in your business right now as it relates to kind of taking the proposition to more companies who, by the way, are all in the same situation, like, and with the same kind of problem, right? Which is, how do you build culture in a distributed workforce? So what would you say, and I know, Brent, you put something out on social, I think, not too long ago about this as well, right? So
it took me 3 weeks to write that little article.
Jeez, well, there you go. Outsource. So Debs, over to you. What would you say is the number one challenge for you right now?
I think the biggest challenge for me is really just drowning out all the noise and becoming really clear on who's my ideal client, who do I want to work with, and what problem is it that I can solve for them amidst this COVID-19 thing in a way that benefits them and me, you know? Because I've got a million ideas, like the hamsters are constantly running in my mind. But I need to like focus and deploy something and start making money off of it.
So Deborah, let me just go into a bit of a monologue here for a couple of seconds. The first thing is that when you take any business from the real world, which is what you and I do, we sit in front of people and we sell our hours, and you put it online.
Yeah.
So any kind of business that goes online, and that's the same whether you are producing cups of coffee, physical cups, and then you're selling cups online. What people don't seem to realize, as soon as you go online, you're no longer the same business, right? So you're no longer a coaching business. You have to become a marketing business. So you know how to produce the cup. You know how to produce the hours or 2 hours of content. That's the part that you've been doing for years and years. It's easy. How you drive traffic to the site to get guys to swipe your credit card, that is a different business completely. So what Matt just said now is like outsource it, right? So either you need to learn genuinely how to be an amazing online digital agency for yourself, or you've got to find the money to find someone who can do it for you. Because I have examples where I have a clothing manufacturer who's been going for 20 years. She's got a factory and a retail store, and it's amazing. She goes online going, I have amazing clients, I got amazing product, I know what I'm doing. Nobody visits her site, okay? And what she doesn't realize is that her RP is no longer in producing clothing, it's how do I drive traffic to my site? So different business completely, okay? So that's the first piece you got to get your head around. Is if you're taking stuff online, you're no longer whatever you were before, you're a marketing business. And that's what you've got to get your head around, the first piece. The second thing for me is that in terms of, what's your product and what's the problem you're solving and who's your perfect client, when you go online, you have to be absolutely razor sharp in terms of who you're going after. And your product cannot be too frayed at the edges. It has to be super, super clear and as simple as possible. So even though you might go, okay, I currently do an 8-hour workshop and we touch on this and we touch on that, and I can do a lot of the answers on the fly because the guys ask questions and I can figure out the solutions on the go. When you put this online, you need one clear path and just remove all the frays, all the pieces on the edge. You want to make sure that you have one very simple product that has a very clear target market, and it needs to be good enough. You don't have to try and think that this is going to be the perfect learning management solution or the perfect training solution or the perfect product. It has to be really good and very, very simple. And then become a marketing business, drive traffic to the product, prove it works. And with that money, then start adding on more modules or more pieces or more product, whatever it is that you're adding onto it. But you've got to make sure that it's so, so simple. And the big mistake you're probably making, and it's a personal lesson that I've seen for myself and my other clients, that you have all these, I know how to do this in the previous business. I have certain biases and expectations of what I can and can't do from my previous business. Previous business being the in the room business, where if you had to start the new business today without any of that experience, how would you build your product? And you would build it very differently because you're not bringing when it works well in the room. Therefore, I'm going to try and translate it onto a video or try and translate it into an editable PDF or an LMS or whatever you're using. Like you wouldn't think like that. So you almost need to separate the old business and the online business as two different businesses and start from scratch.
What do you think, Debs?
Okay, that is some fantastic advice. And actually, I think that's really going to help me to focus, because what I've found, and it's so true what you're saying, Philly, is that, when we're facilitating, sometimes we really have to go with the flow. Like we go in there with a plan, and then you read the room or a problem comes up and you've kind of got to change on the spot, And like you say now, trying to sell a solution, it's actually almost what I'm hearing you say is take that 8-hour workshop and almost go and modulize the topics that you were going to cover and almost productize each of them to make it simple and to make it really work.
And I think that the other thing as well for me, which is interesting, is that a lot of the stuff that we do as facilitators is that we paint the picture in the first half an hour, 45 minutes of the day, right? We sort of give them the reason to care and a reason to believe in what we can do for them. And what I have found is that if you take that and you almost turn that into, let's call it a keynote, put the keynote up live free as almost a lead generator, because you're giving away that content, right? Give the first piece away, because that's often where we sort of paint the picture. We're not adding the value. So we add the value in the actual workshop, but often up front, we end up just talking to the people about, why this is important and where it came from, and if we give them background, that piece, give it away for free. And there's something else that I really prescribe to here, and it's, again, I'm not sure exactly what you do and how you do it, but I love the fact that chefs, famous chefs, give away their recipes, right? They give it away on YouTube. They give it away, even though you're buying their recipe books, they're giving it away in their recipe book. Everything that makes them unbelievably good cooks, they give away. That's all their RP. But they realize just because you can read it doesn't mean you can implement it or you become a great chef. So a lot of the stuff that you're probably doing in your workshop that you're holding on to is, this is my RP. This is what I know. And I can't anyone else know this because this is what they're paying me for. I'm going, no, rubbish. Give pieces of that stuff away consistently. No one's going to piece it together and put a course together. So don't be shy to actually start talking about the content online in small pieces as part of your marketing and content.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
Brent, are you a business coach by any chance?
Am I a business coach? Yeah, I try.
You dabble.
I dabble 9 to 5, and then I've got a second job.
It's a side hustle.
Yeah.
Debs, I'm going to leave you with something which I think might bridge the two. Well, what Brent's kind of said, which is something that Alon Reyes told me when he was on the show not so long ago. He said, "What is your compelling economic right to exist?" And if you think about being able to scale into other companies or other businesses in whichever industry, that for me is something that one needs to have a very good answer to, because that's the one thing that I'd want to know from you. It's like, well, why you? You know, what's your compelling economic right to exist? Why should I give you the time of day? So yeah, that would be my advice. Cool, Debs. Thank you.
That is. Thanks. Thank you very much, guys.
Cool. Thank you. Good luck.
Alrighty.
Thanks,
Debs.
Billy.
Ciao.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
See, look, it worked in the end. Ye of little faith, Brent.
Hey, I have no faith. I hate it.
Cool. Let's get into our live Q&A. Cool, guys. So live Q&A. Jesus, phone line's going nuts. We just had someone phone the studio line asking for dating advice. Can you believe it?
Flop right.
People today. Cool. This one is from Tim.
Hi, Matt. I'm Timothy Maurice Webster, human behavioral author and researcher. What are a couple cool ways to go about pivoting when an area of your business has become obsolete due to the pandemic? Thanks, bro.
There you go, Brent. See? Pivoting.
Okay. So can we just define the word pivot here, right? Pivot is when you change your business model, but you're basically staying in your lane. That's the way I understand it, right? So if you are a SaaS business selling HR software, pivoting means that you're changing the product, but you're still a SaaS business selling software. If you decide that you're no longer selling software, but you're going to do workshops, you're a different business. You're not pivoting. Okay, You're starting a new business. You may have a network that has value. You may have RP that you're transferring from one old business to new business. But so for me, when we talk about pivoting is we're actually on the same. If you think about what a pivot is, it's a swivel off the same departure point. Where if you're doing something else, it's a separate business. So the first thing is that if your business has been wiped out because you're a non-essential service or you're a business that has no value in the current COVID economy, and you want to start something else, that isn't a pivot. That's you're starting a new business and you need to approach it likewise, different thinking. But I do think that pivoting is often figuring out a different channel or different distribution mechanism for the same product, or it's bringing a different sort of service to the same product or same service, like a different angle to it. Could be a different pricing model potentially. So it depends what you're trying to achieve. But if your business is fundamentally wiped out because you're a restaurant or a hotel or something along those lines, a casino, then probably pivoting is the wrong word. So I think that and we use it a lot. We use pivot and strategy and entrepreneurship. We overuse these words. So I think that in terms of pivoting, I think trying to understand that you want to be the same business, either for a different client or a different consumer, or a different business for the same consumer, or the same product, same consumer, different mechanism or model by which you work. So you've gone from a a project-based business to a software as a service business, or that's a pivot. So again, if you were to give me, unfortunately, some more context to your particular problem, that would have probably been more useful. But Matt, what do you think? I mean, in terms of pivoting?
I'm trying to actually bring up on screen here. I don't disagree with anything you said, really. Is the types of innovation. So Clayton Christensen wrote the book Disruptive Innovation, I think. I'm going to bring it up on screen here so you guys can have a look-see. So you see the 4 types of innovation. There's sustaining innovation, keeping the lights on while keeping existing customers happy. There's disruptive innovation, so a low-cost alternative enabled by new technology. New market, so modifying existing solutions for new markets. That's what you're saying, Brent, as a pivot.
Yep.
Then integrative, so multiple jobs to be done in one elegant solution. So, I think we have done this third one here, new market. Is it new market though? Modifying existing solutions for new market? No, it is really, you could make a case.
Newish solutions, yeah.
It's new. You could make a case for it, sure. I think it's probably not disruptive, and it's probably a combination of new market and sustaining. And the reason for that, very simply, is that we've diversified. So we still solve the same problem, but for different customers. Do you understand? So it's still launched with the same knowledge capital, IP, etc. So from our side, what are some innovative ways, Tim, to innovate or to pivot? Christopher Lockhead, who I've got the world of respect for, he wrote a couple of books that were hugely influential in our business. One was Niche Down, and the other one was Play Bigger. And he talks about, he shared a story with me on this podcast, and I'm going to completely bastardize it, but go through the playlist, guys. Look for Christopher Lockhead. I think Mav, actually, can you post up the interview on social media? But in essence, one of his clients, because he's a 3-time CMO, sold his company for over $1 billion, etc. And he basically said, look, if you're going to pivot, you need to be radically thoughtful and radically aggressive. I think that was the term that he used. And so inevitably, you're going to wind up with a different business in most cases. If you truly mean pivots, you have to substantially change things, because otherwise, why are you pivoting at all? It's because something has changed in the marketplace. You can't do physical events anymore, B2B events. You can't do it anymore. Okay, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to go virtual. I'm going to go online events, or whatever the case is, But, and then to do that, well, then I need different people. I need different pricing. I need a different marketing strategy. And so suddenly the business doesn't actually look at all what it was.
So I get that. But my question to you, is that genuinely a pivot, right? I mean, I'll use the example now, is that my life was literally face-to-face physical meetings all the time. And I do this all day long. And I've adopted a whole bunch of technologies like Mural and Miro to run, the workshops. But fundamentally, I'm offering the same service, delivered in a different fashion to the same client. I haven't pivoted. I've just adapted my product offering or my delivery mechanism.
Yes.
So that's not a pivot.
No.
Pivot for me is I physically change what I've done or how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that again, I don't want to harp on the word pivot again, but I think that fundamentally pivot does mean that the result is that you've either got a different service or a different client or both. And possibly if you have both, you got a very different distribution channel. You got a different way of getting the product to the people.
Yeah.
So I think that I could wave the flag going, I pivoted my business, I'm now virtual only. It's the wrong term in my opinion.
I agree with you though. I don't think the thing is, it's less about the term. It's more about the consequence. That for me, that's important. It's like, well, what is the consequence of me innovating or pivoting? Who cares what kind of innovation is called? It's like the thing that's going to keep you around. So I think
relevance, right? It's how relevant are you to the market?
That's it.
And I think that if your departure point and your end results don't change, then you aren't pivoting. So maybe that's one way of looking at it is that if what you do and where you're going with this product and service to the consumer and what your objectives are for the business don't change, then you're just changing distribution or you're just changing model or billing, but you're not changing the business fundamentally. I think a lot of businesses and whether you're a tech business or not, tech businesses have been obviously horribly affected by COVID and this pandemic, and they're trying to be cool to the market, going, we're pivoting our services. Where actually you're just changing the entire business because you have to, and you almost need a brand new business plan to some degree. And Alon raises, ditch the business plan, but you need a strategy for the new business, and don't labor the old business into the new business, because again, it's going to hold you back. Think about it. If you were starting the business today with what you know today about the market going forward, how would you do it? And you would do it very differently.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into our second last failing forward. Brent, what have you failed at this week?
This week? Sure. Today's Tuesday. Monday.
Dude,
when did the week start?
Surely you fail every day. I mean, come on, that's what I do.
I fail every day. No, today, nothing. I can't say I failed today. Actually, I think let's put this in perspective. I'm blaming somebody for something that I thought they should have done when I should have done it myself. And it's not a delegation issue. It was a lazy issue. I was like, you know what? I don't feel like doing this. I'm gonna get someone else to do it. And by the time I briefed this person and took the time to explain to them, dealt with the consequences, I'm not proud of the outcome in terms of what I got back. Would have been easier for me to have done it myself, and I had the time being lazy. So maybe that's a small failure.
I think I kind of alluded to it earlier. I think one of the big failures from my side. So here's the thing. When you found the company, you have to do everything, as you know, Brent. You have to sell, and my journey, pivoting all those times. Matt Brown Media, podcast business, that wasn't going to scale, bombed that. Then we were content for anyone, and then that was like, well, hang on, why are we not growing as fast as we could do? Where's the opportunity? And then we pivoted again into, technology specifically in pipeline. And so that's kind of where we found our feet. So then we started to grow revenues. You have to start building a team, and then the team grows, and we're 35 people, somewhere around there. Changes every week pretty much, in the right direction, I should say. And so and again, it's funny enough, for something that Alon Reyes said, may have tagged Alon Reyes around this one, but he said, a business starts to scale when you see the returns from efforts that are not your own. So as an example, I've got 6 salespeople. We doubled our sales team, and this is a consequence, by the way. We doubled our sales team from 3 people to 6 people for this one reason. And that reason was, when it starts to scale, you think you can just let it go. I can just hand it over to these 3 dudes, and then, it'll be okay. But it's not going to be okay. And at least in my experience to date, maybe it will be at some point when you reach a certain size of scale, but when you're still our size of company, you cannot take your foot off that accelerator, like whatsoever. And the harder you push, right, you need to push harder. And one of the things I learned and I failed at was I took my foot off the accelerator, and I literally allowed the destiny of the business to rest on a handful of souls. And where we wound up was not in a good place, as I said 10 days ago. It was our first real cash flow crunch, having to find millions from somewhere. And then literally, like within a space of a few days, now we've had our best month ever. So we pulled it out of the fire, and it was because of a lack of focus. And for me, a mind divided will always equal failure. And I understand that as a founder, you need to get into the other aspects of the business: strategy, diversification, management of certain things, looking at the big deals, trying to cement really big relationships, trying to secure really big enterprise accounts while other people are selling stuff that keeps the lights on. And so you naturally are sucked into other areas of the business, and so you become distracted. So if you're not very aware of the consequence of these, because I say it is like you only have today, like especially in the B2B space, like you only have today because the sales cycles are so long. It's like if you miss 3 days, that could mean the difference between $1 million this month and $1 million next month. So if you need it this month, then what? Where did it fall flat? Well, it fell flat because I got distracted for 72 hours on this new shiny pivot. You know what I'm saying? So that was one.
So Matt, I mean, no one sells like the founder, right? Like it's always the rule. And you can employ as many sales as you guys you want, and you're right, they might be able to sell the menial, smaller pieces. But the guy that can sell as good as the founder, he's a founder. He's got his own business, or he wants equity. Like a guy that knows how to sell and genuinely has the talent for selling knows his worth in any business. So you always find that guys grow the business and go, okay, I don't want to do sales anymore. I'm just going to hire a sales team or sales manager or whatever it is. And slowly but surely sales just taper off. So measurement of sales is important. But the owner, I mean, we're talking about before an owner exits, you whittle your roles and your responsibilities down. The last thing you are left with on your plate is always sales, always.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that's what I failed at this week. And then I'm going to do our final segment here, which is called the soapbox. Love the drum and bass beats. Thanks, Maverick. So this one I had a thought about this morning, and Brent, please dive in here. So why is it better to be obsessed about your goals than not obsessed? What do you think?
Why is it better to be obsessed with your goals?
Yeah. Versus, say, someone that's not obsessed. Is obsession about your goals a bad thing ever?
No, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the only thing around obsession, and we can make this a little bit softer and fluffier, is sort of what are the motivation and drivers of that obsession. So if you have unhealthy obsessions around those goals, in terms of the obsession is we're just going to make more money, or just piss my opposition off, or we're just going to be egotistical and be on the front cover of every single magazine, and the altruism and the reasons why you're trying to do it are possibly negative, then maybe it's better not to be obsessed with them. But I think that if you intend to grow something meaningful, and it's interesting to me because you made a comment now, you went, oh, we're about 35 people and it changed on a daily basis, and then you had to put the proviso going for the better. And the weird thing is it's for the better for you, right? Because you want a bigger business equals more people. But for some businesses, for the better, maybe how do we make this a 5-man business that's actually better for us? So are they obsessing on how do we get rid of 30 people to make it a small team? And if so, then that's the right obsession. So I think that understanding what the output is, or the end goal, Mulholland calls it your victory condition, right? What is your victory condition at the end of your journey look like? And how do you get there? And if you're not solely focused on achieving that thing, whatever that thing is, then you're probably just not going to achieve it. I think that there's different underlying passions. I'm inherently a massive saver, money, want to save cash, and my goals save X amount every single month. My goal is not grow a monster business, 35 people and cash out one day. So am I obsessed monthly with, can I put the right amount? I've almost got a savings BHAG every single month to achieve a 10-year savings goal. I'm obsessed with that. And the result of that will be my daily actions in order to go and sell, deliver, chase money.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, but I suppose it goes back to the lesson, the failure, right, that I mentioned, which was I stopped being obsessed about it. You know what I mean? And so, geez, dude, I'm reading this amazing book called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
Read it. Yeah.
So I'm reading about, it's all about habits, right? So how do you break bad ones, create new ones? And I learned yesterday, I was reading last night about, I think it's called habit stacking. We're trying to get him on the show here. But it's where you implement a new habit, or you cue a new habit when you are already off the back of another habit that you already have. So yeah, exactly. So as an example, you make a cup of coffee. So what are you going to do? So the moment you pour your cup of coffee is the cue for you then to do something else. You could do a 1-minute meditation, or you could visualize your goal. And I started I introduced that this morning around the visualization of the end game here for me, which is the term sheet, for sure. And the moment I started, just for this morning, I started to visualize the term sheet, and the wording on it, and blah 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 blah, and it made my entire day like regimentally focused. But when I say I mean like I'm saying 10 times more focused, more driven than ever before, because my mind is so obsessed about that one idea, and I will drag people through a war zone to get there. Do you know what I'm saying? But before I was kind of like, let other people do the fighting. I'm going to sit back and sip on my tea. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think, I think you have to be obsessed. You have to be ruthlessly obsessed. It's like if you think like all the Olympians I've interviewed on the show, like the time they spend in the pool, the time they spend, you know, training and practice, it's like it's not normal.
No, it's not normal. Have you watched The Final Dance? What's it? The Last Dance, Michael Jordan, Netflix.
Yeah, dude, what an incredible series, eh? Jeez,
but the point being is that he's like a little bit deranged almost in terms of his absolute singular vision.
Yeah.
Like he relationships aside, he doesn't give a shit about who he tarnishes. If you're with him, you're with him. If you're against him, you're against him, and we're going to go get this at all costs.
Yeah.
And for years, hey. But I think the other thing which is important here is that obviously, you know, money is always a big driver for most sort of business owners and entrepreneurs. But you get to a point also where some people, and I see it often in my own network of clients, that isn't the driver. They don't want to make more money. They're genuinely looking for balance. And their vision isn't the term sheet. Their vision is, well, how do I get to the office at 9:30 in the morning after enjoying a cup of coffee, a bit of sun, maybe go for a walk with the kid. And that's what they're obsessed about. And I'm going, and that's right for them. Okay? So that may push a bunch of your buttons in the wrong way, but it's also around going, well, what do you actually want out of life and out of your business? And then what are you obsessing about in order to get that right? And I think the one big thing for me is that making things public is a massive, massive driver. So for example, I've been sitting on this retrenchment piece for a long, long time. And in the first sort of 4 or 5 weeks of COVID, I was a little bit like, oh, woe is me. Oh, my life. Oh, this is so cuck. I've got really bad internet where I was at the time. And I actually phoned Richard Mulholland. And I said to him, right, I just need someone to give me a bit of a clap. Give me a proper hit in the back of the head and just tell me to wake up. And he did. And I didn't ask for it, but he gave it to me anyway. And within 2 weeks, finished the course. And it's the fact that I asked for help, number one. And then as soon as I decided I was going to do it, so I got off the call with him. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I mailed people. I put it up on social media going, the course is coming. 2 to 3 weeks, here it comes. And people go like, yes, where do we sign? How much is it? And that excitement and making it a public statement, you can't go back on, right? Like you don't want to crawl back and go, oh, sorry, I'm a bit premature on that. It's like suddenly you're accountable to somebody else. And I find that's really good. So if you have daily things that you need to achieve, it's very, very powerful to make it public. And public being your spouse, your friend, your social community, like your church, whatever it is that you're into, go out and go, today I'm going to do this, or this week I'm going to achieve that. And I think that pushes a lot of goals, the short goals, over the line.
Yeah, I think the other thing that James was writing about in his book, he said it's like you get 2 types of habit setting, and one of them, I forget the second one now, but thanks for the messages, guys. But he was talking about you have to say what the behavior is, when and where, and if you say it, is what you're saying. When you vocalize it, it's like you're going to do it 9 times out of 10 as opposed to 3 times out of 10. It's like if you look, so I've actually, weirdly enough, because we're all very busy, and so for me to carve out an hour is tough. I got 2 kids, and I got to what do I do? And so I look at my day and I go, okay, where's the hour that I can get? What can I move? And I'll say to myself, okay, so I'm going to do CrossFit here at the house at 11 or 12 or whatever the time is. And at the moment, and it always happens, like I never get into a situation, very rarely I get into a situation where I'm not able to actually do the thing that I'm trying to do. I just want to say, I wrote a whole book, a thing about scale. Like, is it for you? You mentioned balance, and you get the entrepreneur like me who's just like a capitalist through and through and wants to build, only knows one way, doesn't really have a risk radar, just wants to go huge or go home. And then you got the other guy or the other girl like Deborah, who just wants balance, right? She's got kids. She wants to scale her business into like maybe, 10 different companies. But outside of that, selling her time, she can't really scale. She doesn't really want to manage a team. And so she's not that type of, she's not hungry for the pain of a big business. So I say that like whatever you decide is right for you is right for you. No one should say that it's better or it's less cool than the next guy or the next kind of goal. Whatever you decide is right for you is right for you. I think the stepping stone though is what is the goal that you see yourself obsessing about for 10 years? You know what I mean? Because I think
can I give you an equation on this?
go.
So I believe in work-life balance, but I don't believe in work-life balance on a daily or weekly basis.
No.
I believe in work-life balance in the early parts of your life and the late parts of your life. Now, balance, seesaw, right? That's what a balance is, right? If you kill yourself in the first 20 years of your working career, from 20 to 40, you will have balance in the last half.
Yeah.
Okay. And vice versa. So if you're tapering along through your first 20 years of work, you will taper along in the last 20 years of your work. So the amount of effort you put in the beginning will give you balance at the end of your life, and vice versa. If you do nothing and you're a slacker for the first 20 years, guess what? If you want to make money in the last 20 years, you're going to have to work your ass off. So that for me is work-life balance. But also what's important is that think of it more like an equation, right? A very, very simple maths equation. A plus B equals X. X equals wealth, equals retirement, equals what's the number? What's your number? What's your term sheet? X, okay? Now, early part, late part, A and B. If X is 10, let's call it 10 bar, okay? If X is 10, and in the early part, you put in 7, in the late part of your life, you need to put in 3, and you will achieve your number. There's your balance. You put in 5 plus 5 equals 10. Now, obviously, the length of that from early to late depends on where you are in life today, okay? But I think determining what wealth is and understanding what X is for you, what's your X number, is the starting point. And then based on that, you can then work out, well, how many more years do I want to work? How many more years can I work? And what does that balance look like on a daily basis in order for me to achieve wealth?
Yeah.
And for me, wealth is a very simple thing, because wealth is obviously different for every single person. For me, wealth is getting to a point in your life, a date, a definitive date, where your burn is less than your annuity income every single month. Very simple. So as long as you have more money coming in, doing no work, than what you spend on a monthly basis, according to your lifestyle, you're a wealthy man.
Yeah, I saw this really great question someone put out on my timeline. It said, "What does it mean to be rich today? What does it actually mean?" And people are like, "Yeah, well, no, rich is being able to buy a Ferrari and all this kind of stuff." And then some smart person actually said, "You don't get many smart people on Twitter these days," he said, rich is defined as 37 times, the multiple of 37 across your annual living expenses. So take whatever you spend in a year, multiply that by 37 is rich.
If you've got that in the bank, you're rich.
Yeah. So I worked that out. It's about 40 million rand, or about is that right? Yeah. I don't know. It's weird when you convert it back to dollars, but it's about that. I think, or maybe it was higher. Anyways, between like 40 or 50 million, somewhere around there, based on that logic, right? Because you could, if you said like, if I gave you 50 million now, Brent, you wouldn't need to work again, because you could invest that money, interest alone, you cover easy, right? So and that would also, I mean, I know you got a kid as well, and so even covering with that as well, and incidentals, you would still probably be okay. If you're an idiot,
you'd be fine. You'd be fine. So the other thing is just a small insight is that the older my clients get, the smaller the number becomes. So when you're 20 and you say to a 20-year-old, "What's your number?" It's always 100 bar. I want 100 bar. And when you ask the 55-year-old, "What's your number?" It's 5, it's 10. It's a much more realistic number. And I think it's because they've realized where they are in their life and how difficult it is to actually extract that kind of cash out of the ether, and what it takes to build a business that's worth 100 bar at the end.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is, but it's interesting to me is that definitely the older my clients get, the smaller their number becomes, for sure.
Yeah, because also they have less time left to live. So, it's like, how many more Sportsters could you buy?
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So thank you everybody for joining live and for sticking around for all of us. Thank you very much. Rosemary Fresh, sorry didn't get your question. Keith, sorry didn't get your question. I'll add it into the next show. Brent, thank you so much for your time, dude. It's been a real privilege and honor having you here, bro. Again. Yeah, fun.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks,
All right.
Cheers, everybody.
All the best, man.
Ciao.
Cheers.